Okay, perfect. Let's start. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of It's Bigger Than Biotech. I'm your host, Hriday Gondalia, Director of True Drug Pharma and a student here at the University of Southern California.
And I'm Vishnu, a software engineer and machine learning and neuroscience researcher, aspiring to be a neurotech entrepreneur, also here at SC.
Now, let me introduce you to our very distinguished guest today, Brielan Smiechowski. She is the founder and managing partner of BS Strategy, where she partners with individuals and organizations to develop research driven strategies that create impactful solutions. With a background in epidemiology and also being an educator, Brielan is passionate about promoting health equity and innovation in healthcare. In this episode, we'll delve into Breelan's journey from her academic achievements at McGill University to her role as a lecturer at USC. We'll explore her insights on the importance of data driven decision making in health and her experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, also, her vision for empowering leaders in healthcare. So, without further ado, let's welcome Breelan to the podcast. All right.
Hello, thank you both of you for having me here today. Very excited to have this conversation with you and to dive into some of the questions that we have here further.
Yeah, definitely. It's an honor to have you on the podcast. So let's just get right into it. Could you just, by starting off, could you just tell us about your journey from epidemiology to founding BS Strategy and your current role as a CEO?
Yes, of course. So, as you mentioned, I have a background in epidemiology. I went to McGill University and got my master's there. From there, I hopped into the research side of the biotech healthcare world and helped to get drugs and devices approved and reimbursed in different countries. So, that right away gave me a really good deep dive picture into how to explore literature, how to answer business and research questions, and how to create stories and really capture the value and impact a new innovative product or therapeutic or intervention could have for a patient population. So I started on that side, really dove into the research, and then early on in my career, I didn't realize this at the time, but it was articulated to me as I kind of went. Not everyone can talk science to different stakeholders. So, one of the things that was identified for me and how I actually made my transition from just a pure research role to a strategy role was my ability to articulate and capture how do we talk about research in a way that people with money or people on the policy side well, so what is that information? What is that story they need to know? And so that pushed me over to more the business strategy side. I started working with startups in the AI machine learning space, as well as the data interoperability and data integration space. And from there, I kind of saw a need to kind of find my own niche where it was a mix of not only generating high quality evidence, but also helping leaders then articulate those scientific stories and research stories to different audiences, maybe to get funding, maybe to push their innovation to the next level, or is it to go to market with what they have available. So that's really kind of transitioned me that way. And I now fall in a really fun space where I get to support entrepreneurs, executives, people that are running incredible companies to help them either transition from being also researchers or clinicians to really strong leaders, step in and help them from a business strategy standpoint. I help public health departments with some of their strategy and needs assessment and helping them pair up with what technologies are available. And then I also get to be an educator. And that's, I think, something I'm very passionate about at this point and really think is important within our current ecosystem is how do we equip patients, caregivers, to really have the information and tools necessary to navigate and advocate for themselves as they navigate their healthcare.
Okay, wow, that's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, this journey is so unique. And you really mentioned something that was very interesting was that people don't know how to talk science to different stakeholders. Very insightful and very true as well. So just following up on that, right? How has your experience as an epidemiologist and researcher informed your work as a consultant and an executive?
So I think for me, a big part of it is the value of making sure you have the highest quality evidence that are available to really answer key research and business questions. And with that said, and I'm sure yourselves as students, you come across a lot of literature and it's dense. You know there's some good in there. You know that there's some value, that they maybe have found something incredible, but to actually, again, dissect it, pull it out, not that you're dumbing it down, but you are presenting it in a way that a non-scientific community or individuals who could be impacted or do something with this information feel empowered and that they have a clear understanding of what the value is generated. I think the other big part of it is just that ability to, when somebody presents something, especially in the commercialization marketing space, we see a lot of products now that are direct to consumer, that there's all these claims and wild, like this does this and like this is going to cure this. I think it gives me a bit of a superpower and ability to really step back and go, does this smell right? Is this something that actually seems tangible and feasible? And being able to then dive a bit deeper quite quickly to actually understand what is it that they're claiming and is there any actual evidence to back that.
That's very interesting. Now, because you have your own company and lots of our listeners are, students or people trying to break into the industry, either recruit for startups or bigger biopharmaceutical companies, etc. We wanted to talk more about recruitment in general. What challenges would you say you've encountered in recruiting talent for different roles throughout your career?
I think, especially as we have all these niche companies that come up, I think you mentioned you're really big into neurotech and some of these niche areas, it's so finding really early talent, like first job out of college, I find very easy because at that point, I just need somebody who works hard, who's willing to show up, is curious, thinks outside the box. I think it becomes a bit more difficult to find somebody who has maybe subject matter expertise, but also has that ability to think from a business standpoint. So I think a lot of people, especially even I find PhDs, masters, or even some clinicians sometimes, they're very brilliant people, but they've never been challenged or they've never been in situations where they need to sit outside the box and understand how their skill set now plays in a different ecosystem. So I think a lot of times, especially as you get into that kind of middle management and all that, I think ultimately a lot of times, especially in our field, everyone is super smart. It's now, is it the pieces that you need to fit in? So a lot of it isn't people aren't smart, people don't have skills. It's just more of, can you have a clear defined picture of what you're looking for, be able to articulate that and draw that talent? I think it's a lot of times it's a fit versus maybe like what a certain skill set needs to be. So and I think that's the trade-off too, is do you get somebody who's super heavy subject matter expert and maybe you have to train in other ways, or do you get somebody who's more of a methods or systems thinker and then you get them to learn the subject matter? I think too, especially when we innovate, you're not always going to find somebody who kind of falls in both of those camps.
I see. And in your experience, like you mentioned, there's two groups, right? There's all the subject
Yeah.
matter experts who already know what they're talking about and get them to articulate better, or there's the people who know how to talk about like business in general and then get them to learn about a specific subject matter area. What do you think is in a way easier to do? Is it better to teach someone, or is it better to teach someone to communicate, or about teach them how to or teach them about a specific subject?
So I think it really depends on the individual and challenge you have at Chin.
Okay.
And I think also as a leader, what capacity do you have? So I think too, when you're building out a team, you're building out an organization, they're all different pieces that are working together to solve one problem. So I think it's looking at what do you have on your team so far? What are the expertise? Does somebody do you yourself have to train in certain ways? And I think also when you're looking at candidates, it's what is their willingness as well. Some people can be very stuck in their way and it's okay, you can get them there, but do you have capacity for that? So I think in many cases, for me, I think it's easier personally to teach subject matter expertise. If somebody has built-in systems, understands how companies work, what kind of steps are necessary, because a lot of times processes are very similar. You just have to switch out variables. So for me, if somebody already knows, okay, how do we build operations or how do we build a commercialization structure, what the topic is less important. And I think in that way you can kind of plug that gap. So I would say more so for me, I lean towards somebody who gets systems and then we'll be like, okay, let's figure out how to supplement what knowledge you need specifically on this topic. I also think that's how my brain works, that I'm very much a methods heavy person. And across my career, when I've worked in different spaces, I think that it is very possible to deep dive very quickly and learn the nuances that you need for what niche part of the industry that you're focusing on.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, you talked about, I guess, people who have like subject matter expertise and also just people who are systems thinkers. But to dive deeper into it, based on your diverse experience, what skills do you consider most valuable when hiring for healthcare and consulting positions specifically?
So, big ones for me are curiosity, willing to learn, ready to roll up your sleeves and work hard, but also I think is that you're okay with making mistakes and that we're going to have to iterate a lot to find answers. Again, especially working much in my career, sort of the innovative cutting edge of that. We don't know how this is going to work space, or we're in beta mode, or we're launching this for the first time. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And you also have to be okay with raising your hand and asking a question when something seems off. I think this is like one of the biggest mistakes I see with younger employees is they'll go into a meeting, they'll get a bunch of information that's kind of nod their head, write down their notes, but not stop and actually ask questions. Because more times than not, and I'm very grateful I had a mentor who would do this, he would explain something, pause and go, does that make sense? And if everyone nodded their head, he would point at something and go, cool, explain to me what we're doing. And it made you very humble very quickly. It made you realize you don't want to be that person. Like, ask the questions early for clarity. Because especially when you're doing something for the first time, especially a leader is going to have an idea or concept of what they think this should look like or the direction they should go, but they've hired a team to help question and push that hypothesis. So you want to have people, I think for myself, is to have people in who again are going to sit there and go, this sounds off, or this seems simple, but it doesn't make sense to me, because a lot of times they're not the only ones. So I think that's a big part. And I think too, as people, I'm a firm believer is I want people with diverse experiences. So if you grow up in a different country, if you've had certain accessibility challenges, that is giving you certain superpowers and the ability to be resilient. Bring that to work. Because I think, again, working in the innovative space, we need people to think outside the box. We need to think about things differently. So really, and again, as a leader, trying to create that space where people feel comfortable and want to bring that to work with them, because it is really important. If you want to solve the hard stuff, you need people who think differently.
Okay. And you mentioned a big factor for you was, someone's willingness to learn on the job, right? How do you judge for that before you hire them?
That is a great question. I think for me, it's when somebody's in an interview, have they done some research about the question or the company? Do they come with questions? Again, that sense of curiosity and not just there to take it and like, okay, whatever you say is right, but to question and go, hey, you said this, what does that mean? Or that's interesting that you're looking at about this way. I saw this company that maybe is a competitor of yours. What do you think? Like, what do you think, or how does that compare? So I think coming in and at any level is, I think this is one of my favorite things about being in the healthcare space is like, we get paid to learn. Like that is our job, is to learn and understand and explore, and just to see people who get science is that what we know today may not be what we know tomorrow. So again, having firm, being able to dive into evidence and understand that, but also have that flexibility of what we know today may be completely wrong, or we didn't have all the information we needed.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly that's very helpful, because I've heard so many of our guests come in and say that like the number one a factor for hiring someone is their willingness to learn, but I never could get to the part where I asked them, how do you judge for that? But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is absolutely very, very true. It's honestly, it's almost like sometimes expected, like when you're going into an interview to know about the company you're interviewing at. But yeah, like thank you for the clarification and this great answer.
Yeah.
So specifically to dive back, let's go back to your university days, right? Like when you were back at McGill for your master's. How did your master's degree in epidemiology at McGill specifically prepare you for your like subsequent career path and starting your own company?
So I think first and foremost, I felt like I was thrown in the deep end when I got to graduate school. I was in a very, very heavy biostatistics program. I learned how to program and code, I think in like 3 or 4 different languages. There was very high expectations. I think it was very humbling to a sense that I was with some of the top physicians, pharmacists, professionals in my field in Canada. And so right away, it was just this level of incredible people where you had to show up, you had to get uncomfortable and just have as much information thrown at you as possible and try to navigate how to put it together and keep up with a high workload. So I think for me, it was just being okay with the fact that I am learning. I was a biology chemistry undergraduate, worked as an LL chemist before I went to graduate school. And so for me, I had to be okay with like, I am learning a lot of these concepts for the first time, and it's not going to make any sense. I think with like biostats was a big one for me. You're using all Greek letters. So
Mhm.
even when somebody's explaining what a formula is, it's a different language. So you're sitting there and they're like beta this, beta that, and you're like, okay, let me see which one is which. Let's put those. And so being okay with the fact that I wasn't going to have all the answers, and it really forced me too to realize in graduate school, and very similarly when you get into corporate, you're not in this alone, and people do want to help, but you have to raise your hand and ask for help, and again be able to show up and want to work hard. But it was really just very, very, it was a very vulnerable experience. And just also too is just the power of finding community and finding people to collaborate with to help you get through. Because, all right, one brain, you may have one piece of it, but again, you put a bunch of people with different backgrounds together, there's the ability to much quicker figure out all the pieces and have it explained in different ways that will finally make sense to you.
Yeah, it's power of collaboration. Very true. Because I mean, one person can't possibly know everything. Like, it's either you're like a really good generalist or you're really good like at one thing. And I feel like having both is a dream, but it's not very practical for most people.
Yeah. And I think too, early on in your career, even going back to like hiring,
Mm,
especially when you're more junior, you're not expected to have all the answers. I think that that's like a big thing to remember. Like again, if you had all the answers, you would be running the company. You would be the one that is the expert presenting everything. So I think it's having that mindset too, is that you're there to learn. You're there again to make mistakes, and especially in academia, it is a space where you can try a whole bunch of things and actually feel supported, which is maybe not always the case in corporate world, but it, again, take advantage that you are in a space that, especially I look at somewhere like USC, you have so many resources available to you. Just even from if you're doing research on a project, go talk to a librarian. Like there are
mm.
people who can help you with your search strategies or help you look at things in a different way. So I think it's just again is being able to step back and be kind to yourself in that situation of if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're probably not alone. And again, there's help and people who want to see you be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like that's not the sentiment with most students at like specifically at USC as well. Because like hiring is so cutthroat here. Like, you want to kind of like have the best resume, have the best extracurriculars. Yeah, you want to have the best everything, best grades. I feel like you saying that it's not a lot of pressure and you're expected to be in a stage to learn. Is this more of a general statement? Because like I've seen like for example, maybe not in healthcare, but let's say in tech, oh
Yeah.
man, these guys go through a lot. I've seen a lot of like students go through like a lot of coding. I'm not too technical, but it was very, very intense seeing my friends go through recruiting for investment banking or let's say, yeah, like
This is fair, and I think it's that hard balance of there is going to be competition, and there's only so many jobs that are with these top banks and all that. I think it's trying to reverse, and if anything, I can like tell my younger self is how do you do it from a place of abundance? How do
Mhm.
you do it from a place where you feel supported and that this is sustainable? Because ultimately, like especially from a coding perspective, you could like you've got hackathons and you've got people who will be coding for 14 16 hours at a time. And
Yeah.
yes, you can do that every once in a while, but if that becomes your norm, what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when there's a deviation from that? So I think it's being again understanding that there is the roots and paths, but it's also acknowledging what do you actually want to sign up for? and being realistic with that as well from a lifestyle. And I think this is like tech is glamorized in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it can be a lot emptier than I think people realize. And so, if you're in it for the fame or that you're wanting the money and all that, yes, that's great. Just know what trade-offs go with that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You're right. If you want the money, it's competitive, right?
Yeah, but I also think too that we forgot that you can have success and have it sustainable. Like it doesn't have to destroy you. So I
Right.
think that a lot of times too, or like especially early in your career, there's going to be hard work, there's going to be long hours. But again, that stepping back of if you are having to kill yourself every single day to just create the bare minimum of what you think you need to do, maybe that's an opportunity to step back and go, either maybe this isn't the path for you, or again, that asking for help or reevaluating how you're approaching it, because it doesn't have to hurt all the time.
Yeah, that's actually very true. And that's a very like sustainable way of thinking about it because like
Yeah.
most people become very toxic when it comes to like recruiting or like yeah, looking for a career. Like they don't look at the holistic balance of things. But
Yeah.
like, keeping on that path, going back to your undergraduate degree, like what resources did you use the most that helped you kind of figure out your career path in a more sustainable way?
So I think for me, as I was very fortunate. I found some incredible mentors early on. So I was a Division I soccer player in my undergraduate. That's how I ended up at Arkansas State University. I was a goalkeeper. And I ended up having a professor who had been a women's volleyball coach, and he ran one of the largest labs at the Bioscience Institute that was a center that was at our university. And so it was finding somebody that understood my situation. Like when I was in undergrad, I couldn't work crazy hours, but also saw the value of allowing me time to work in the lab and giving me exposure to be a part of some really cool projects. So we had some, after I finished, I actually stayed for an extra year and ran his lab. And it gave me the opportunity, I think, again, to see what research looked like beyond academia. So looking at, okay, working with the NIH, having an NIH grant, how do you frame your research in a way that you're getting grant funding, that you're able to communicate it to government agencies? And this was a lot of early preclinical work. And then on the flip side, I also had the opportunity to work with the Department of Defense. So understanding what research looked like, and how you frame it to a military audience or a space missile defense audience. So it really, again, just gave me more opportunity to understand, okay, I love research, I love generating evidence, what this is, but gave me exposure to what all opportunities are possible. So working with hospitals, working with government contractors or defense contractors, working with government agencies. So it was an interesting experience, again, just to see how many different ways can this manifest? So it probably also gave me the first exposure too of what it was to work with private companies in the research space as well.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely very interesting, but would you say like a very undervalued resource would be your professors in a way at university?
So I would say not all professors are going to be open to it, but I would say a lot. It's really worthwhile. And I say to my students, and it was a big one for me, we had to as athletes because of our schedule, but I think it's really important. In every class you have, go up to your teacher, introduce yourself, your professor, send them an email. Because I think that more and more, like the more even just that practice of going, hi, this is who I am. I'm excited about your class because of these reasons. Oh, I saw that you had this background. That's really cool. Just showing that curiosity or even that practice of asking those questions allows you to build relationships. And you're not going to maybe click with every professor that you have. But there is that opportunity. The more, again, law of numbers, the more you do it, you may identify somebody that you really get on with, sees the world like you do, and is able to give you that guidance. So I think, again, is professors are there because they love research and a lot of them love teaching and they want to see their students be successful. So I think there's huge value of at least establishing a relationship. And I think even just as a student, when a teacher knows your name and let's say life happens or you get a grade you don't want or there's something that comes up during the semester, just even the fact that you've made that initial contact is most likely going to make your life easier.
Right.
It's just, I think there's such a benefit that way. And I see so many students who are just there, heads down, I just want to get through it. It's such an easy step to take that can open up so many doors beyond what you can imagine. So again, it's kind of your choice of how do you want to experience education? And again, building those relationships. The same with like going to the library, meeting the librarians in like the science or healthcare space. There may not be something that they can help you with right now, but let's say you have a senior project or something as you're leaving that they could give guidance on. So I think it's again just opening as many doors as you can that way. And your tuition's paying for it, so you might as well take advantage of all these people that are there to support and help set you up for success.
Yeah, I see lots of value in what you said about, I guess, contacting professors and really going gung-ho on it, because I think lots of students, including myself, we haven't really tapped into that resource of professors, clubs and everything, because there are other students there and it's very glamorous. It's basically all that people do, and I think professors going up to them either for research or for just like opportunities that they might have or connections that they might have, if you're in a class with them, etc., is really important.
Yeah, and I think when you look at networking, it's not just looking at your peer group. I think again that at USC you have a bunch of incredible people that you now are a part of the cohort, but it's networking above and below the level that you're at. So even myself now, like I love the fact that I get to engage with former students and people that have been in my classes, but I also love that I still am in contact with people who are my professors. Because again, depending on where you are in your life, because now, like if I need to hire in, I have a pool of individuals I've spent time with that I know that either I can hire or refer to people, and then on the flip side, I have people who are more senior that can help give guidance and navigate. So I think it's also understanding that it's not just a flat pool, but people at different phases can offer different things as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And on the note of networking, I think one of the bigger questions to ask about, let's say, a future of a company or role or industry is first, when talking to either the founder or CEO, talking about what their personal North Star is and where they think their company is going. So I'd like to ask you that as well. Why are you doing what you're doing?
So why I'm doing what I'm doing. For me, I worked heavy in industry and where I found a gap or where I was missing, it was a big focus in the US is healthcare is about making money. And that kind of for me is as an epidemiologist, the goal is always how do we make people healthier? And so I think for me, what I realized in a lot of the spaces I was in was here is a group of people who are trying to make the world a healthier place, but the systems and the company themselves that's been created isn't healthy. So how do we, I think, so a lot of when I work with CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, a lot of it is helping them look at again is, all right, you have this great idea, you have this vision, but you yourself have to live it as well. So I think it's stepping back again to that sustainability of being, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? Like we're in a capitalistic society, so there is acknowledgement, okay, there needs to be money made and generated. How do we do that in a way that gets very much to do good, do well, and do it while you're healthy? So I think it's changing that framework and having that as forward is like we have to, similar to AI models, is what is being put into a model has to be of high value or of high quality. So I think in healthcare, you have to have healthy people creating healthy systems if we want them to be sustainable. So that's a lot of where my work kind of has evolved into the approach I take. My North Star is let's make it easier for everyone to have the opportunity to be healthy. Full stop. I think that for me, I look at myself, the privilege I have as a white cis female who's mostly able-bodied is I look at how difficult it can be for me to navigate the healthcare system. And so I think that is the acknowledgement of a lot of what drives me is all right, if it's this difficult for me at times, how is it for other people? And so really helping other individuals who are passionate about navigating tools and being empowered and equipped to make decisions about their health, how do we provide those skills? And so that's a lot of what drives now. And then on the entrepreneur side, again, I see incredible people who have ideas that are going to change the world or how we approach treatment. I work with people in the neurotech space. I work with people in biotech and pharma. And it's just, again, how do we do this in a way that they are changing people's life for the better, but they're doing it in a way that's sustainable and is really going to support the individuals or achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah. Wow, that was like a really great North Star, like very short, simple, sweet. Like it's perfect, like very well thought out, I have to say. But I actually just wanted to go a step back to your university, right? Any specific regrets you had, like specifically with using resources towards your career? Anything you wished you used when you were still in university?
I think as an undergrad, it was difficult because I was an athlete, but I wish, again, more time to explore and not have just fixed ideas in my head. So I think we very early on, it was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to dive in. This is my niche area. I think it's letting go of what you think the outcome's supposed to be and more embrace that journey and allow yourself more room to explore. Similarly, my graduate degree, I worked throughout it. I'm very grateful. I don't have any debt from either of my degrees. But the trade-off of that is I was working a couple of research jobs, and at times I think I was so worried about paying my bills and survival that I didn't really indulge in some of the resources or opportunities that were there and really enjoy. I think too, we're always in such a rush for what's next. And this is the big thing I say for students, especially when you're in your early 20s. Like that's the time to take risks and not be in any rush. So I think also it's really allowing yourself, even though it's like hard to say if you look at your bank account or you're going to take out loans, indulge in the fact that you get to be in this current state as a student. Like really indulge that the expectation again, and we've talked about with like tech jobs, that okay, it's cutthroat. If I want to go into investment banking, I have to make these decisions. Yes, that is there, and it will be there whenever it's supposed to be there. Again, be in that moment. And like one of the things I wish I would have done in undergraduate, my schedule didn't allow, was like studying abroad. That, like something simple like that, or picking up a few more business classes, or doing like how I ended up in epidemiology. I was a fifth year senior because I was an athlete, and I ended up taking a history of plagues and pestilence class. I was the first science major to ever take it. Was a history course. And the teacher and I kind of looked at each other, and were like, okay, we think about this differently. But it was because of that course that it finally put words to what the profession was that I wanted to do. So it just, again, that opportunity to follow an interest, follow something that resonates with you is just really indulge in that, because being a student is a very unique time. And again, I get the stress of like, I want to find the job, I want to go, but really just, you only get to be in your early 20s for so long. So really enjoy and just explore what is possible there, and know that for most people at that point of their life, there's not a huge amount of risk and take chances or trying something completely outside the box.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Take risks, guys, and take advantage of the resources that you have, especially in school.
Yes. Yes.
So pivoting again to the future of your role and industry in your company, what trends do you foresee in healthcare consulting, and how might they impact the industry in the upcoming years?
So big trends are who has the data? Who has the data? Who has the best data? Who has longitudinal, robust data that you can build high quality models on? I think right now, one of the biggest concerns that I see is everyone's trying to put AI in everything. Like it's like we can build an AI model for this. And especially in a system like the US healthcare system, the majority of the data sets, especially when it comes to billing and insurance, they're all fragmented. So again, you have incredible companies out there that are making a lot of this data interoperable and more robust. But it really, I think the biggest trend is who can create data sets with impactful models that are transferable and can be used in different dynamics. Other big trends I see right now is really heavy because of the changes we see because of the current administration is really on that patient education and advocacy part. More and more we're seeing that not insurers are starting to cover not just pharmaceuticals now, but you have lifestyle programs, digital health apps, herbals and all that. More and more they're covered under HSA and all that. So as a consumer, if I'm a company, I want to make sure that I have an educated consumer who can see the value in my product. So, and as a consumer, for any solution now, let's say, okay, I have back pain. I can Google and all these apps come up, or all these devices and tools can come up that could be helpful, but how do I make a decision? So I think more and more it's just the framing and how do you equip individuals to make those decisions. And then as well, because there is so many pathways you can take to be healthy, I think a big area that I'm starting to see is we have all these apps, we have all these interventions available. What are now these tools that are being overlaid to help with that decision navigation? So I think more and more we see that not only on the doctor side of treatment pathways for individuals with more traditional, treatment pathways like in cancer or diabetes, but also as an individual from the holistic health perspective of and in preventative care, how can I navigate my health? And it's looking beyond just traditional health, the outcomes and variables, but also looking at your social determinants of health. So it's looking at, do I feel safe at home? Do I feel financially secure? Do I have access to healthy food? So I think more and more it's helping people think beyond just now I'm sick, let's make a decision, but beforehand of okay, I am very anxious right now. What are steps I can take in my life?
Yeah, definitely. And one point you mentioned that really stuck with me from that was the fact about data.
Yeah.
Who has the most data, and like why do you think that matters so much currently? And also, second point is you mentioned as data was very fragmented in the industry. Could you get a little bit more into that? Like what exactly?
Yeah. So I think data collection and people's attention are kind of the two big buckets I see when it comes to building models in an AI. So right now you've got to think about it. The average individual, where did they get their healthcare information? They get it from social media. They get it from whatever algorithm. And so for myself, right now, like there's not any guardrails. We actually call like your Facebook, anything Meta, those are our walled gardens. Like we don't have access or any transparency of what is being built there. Technically, from my understanding, it's still not legal to target people based on their health information. But what you're able to do is build proxy models based on semi-health variables based on your buying habits or where you're spending time. So whoever has that data and create that picture has the ability to really influence behavior and where people are spending their time and energy, how they're thinking about their health. On the fragmentation side, so healthcare information, so because so much of the healthcare system, your insurance is based on your employer. Especially this day and age, people hop and change jobs every few years. So every time that you change, you're going to possibly have a different healthcare provider or health insurance have to change who your provider is because of that. So a lot of the time, you're only getting like a 2-3 year snippet of somebody's data. Whereas in a public healthcare system, maybe like Canada, or in the UK, where everyone's the same system, I maybe have the whole life history of somebody like a 10-15 year picture. So there is companies that are working to make different data sets interoperable based on like patient name and different identifiers, your date of birth, your addresses, maybe social, all that to kind of put those pieces together. But a lot of time, and this is even with AI, people have a great idea of what model they want to build. But when you do the data munging and cleaning and normalize your data set, you realize like your length of follow-up may be only a few years. So if you're trying to make a predictive model that's 10-15 years, that's extremely difficult to do with a lot of data in the US. You have some registries and Medicaid data or Medicare can give you some longer, but it's maybe not representative or generalizable to a larger population.
I see. Like just quick question, like why hasn't this been done already? Like why is it so fragmented in the first place? Like why isn't there a system? Like that's so confusing to me.
That is a great question. I think this is fundamentally one of the struggles we have with the US healthcare system is Epic is one of the larger insurance billing companies. But even then, it's that question of who owns the data. So as an individual right now, even yourself, if you wanted to get a full picture of, let's say, if you were born in the US to now, so let's say 20-25 years of your life of data, that's a difficult challenge. If you haven't had, you think about it, if you haven't had this, let's say you moved for college or your family moved midway. Like, how do you actually, even yourself as an individual, you have rights through HIPAA to be able to claim your data and get your data, but for you to actually be able to create a full record of all your health records would be quite difficult. And so there is movements to see if we can make it more patient-centric. Again, there's companies that are trying to put different clearinghouses together to create bigger pictures. It's just there's so much money around the way systems currently are set up that there hasn't been incentive. Whereas I look at like UK Biobank is a prime example. It's a data set out of the United Kingdom that is allowing a mixture of genetic data with healthcare records, with census records, and is actually creating a data set that you can start building these more robust business models on. So this is, again, my issue with a lot of AI that's being created. There's some amazing like specific use cases, especially around like creating efficiencies in hospital and systems. But when it comes to looking at patient health over time, it's not great. Also, you've got to think too, okay, if you have a wearable, so if you wear an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring and all that, that's one snippet of data, but that's not the whole picture. So even it's measuring certain dynamics, but you're not getting other information fed in. So again, who actually probably has some of the best data for this is your Googles, your Apple, your Meta, anything that's tracking more your behavioral versus your actual pure health information.
And you said, I guess, like there are companies that are trying to merge all the data together so that it's just the healthcare system is just better in a way that, like, let's say if a hospital has records from the past 19 years of my life, it's much better than the past 2 years when I've been on a particular insurance. What are these companies specifically? Are they the big tech companies that are giving us the data, let's say Google, Meta, etc., or are they the insurance companies? Like, who are these companies?
So I've worked for them, but companies that come to mind are Healthverity, Itavant, you've got some work at Viva, you've got your larger conglomerates as well. It's more your end users. This stuff isn't cheap. I think that's the first, you have to purchase the data, you have to have access rights to the data. And so your biggest consumer and who's able to actually afford and create these robust data sets is mostly pharma
Yeah.
and biotech that has the money to do it. So usually they're building a cohort to be able to do an observational study or to be able to pull insights to feed an economic or policy model. That way, so it's very niche specific use cases. Whereas to build out, I think this too is when you are making data interoperable, you have to, I don't think it's a full proper like IRB, like ethics approval, but you have to get the rights from whatever company that you're pulling these different data sets together. You have to have a clear intention in mind that you have to share with them. So I think too, there's still a lot of safeguarding around, okay, how is data being used? Yes, it's scrubbed of any identifiable information, but it's still sensitive information that is being combined. So I think again, on the non-healthcare or the quasi-health data side, where again, it's more your consumer, self-reported, maybe wearable data, that seems to be a bit more open when it's not deemed like medical or health data. There's a bit more flexibility of how things can be combined to what level. But as soon as, again, we start putting in that genetic data or diagnostic data, there tends to be a bit more red tape of how that can be combined and who has access to that.
Okay, I see. And one specific thing with the problem of data, right? Consolidating it. Do you think
Yeah.
something a private company can solve, or is this more of a macro issue and like needs to go to government regulations or laws? What do you think it would be?
I think it's a mix. So I would love to see a world where the individual has more control and autonomy over their data. Like that for me is when it comes to, because again, looking at how much money is made off of just selling data. Yes, there is the cost of organizing it, cleaning it, storing it, all that, and acknowledge that. And I honestly think we could shift to a world, and I would love to see this, especially when it comes to, again, equipping patients to make better decisions about their health. Can we make it more patient owner centric so that they're an engaged individual of how their data is being shared, that they have an idea of what is available, and that it's more based around them versus just being in these disparate systems. So I think it's a mix of all parties involved. I think there has to be, from a regulatory and government standpoint, clear directions of what that looks like, usability, and the efforts around that. Again, the countries that we see, your Scandinavian countries, even some of your Asian countries, are much more advanced at how they're thinking about this. And so they have invested into large data systems. I want to say Dubai is another one. Iceland sequenced the genome of majority of their population. So I think it does have to be driven by government to some extent and see that there is value around it. The one in Iceland, they license it out. Like I think Amgen has first right or used to the data available there, but like there were strict rules of how that was used, and like any discovery, Iceland would get so much money, like the government would get so much money. So there was transparency with how it was being used, but there was incentives to why a country would want to invest into that infrastructure. So I think the US because we're so fragmented, it's seen as maybe a very defeating challenge. But I do think with Amazon now owning One Medical, a lot of the like healthcare conglomerates starting to I guess kind of consolidate. We are seeing some aggregation, but again, it's not at that federal level and maybe possible at a state level. But to get it to the point where it's federal, it would have to be a lot of changes in policy incentives and I think even a mind frame of how we view healthcare.
Okay. Yeah, that was a very interesting like rabbit hole we went down on in the industry, and it's very interesting, honestly, learned a lot. But now moving on to our next section, and our final section is rapid fire. So I'm just gonna ask you a few questions, and you can answer in like one sentence, one word.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, perfect. So could you tell me about a topic in the healthcare industry or the pharma or biotech that you love the most?
Yeah. So we've seen in a few years become more top of mind is how our mind and well-being are really connected.
Mm.
So there's the book by Bessel van der Kolk that's The Body Keeps the Score. And it's very much the shift in thinking of what our mind state is, how we feel, our emotions. Again, do we feel secure? Do we feel safe? That plays a huge role into our health. And I think more and more we are realizing, okay, I can give this patient this treatment, but if they don't feel safe or secure, how much of an impact is going to be like? And so I think more and more it's even when somebody comes in and they feel held, even the patient experience, when somebody feels heard, seen by a doctor, I truly believe that they're going to have better outcomes. I think more and more is when we look at a patient, it's not just about giving them a drug, it's also taking care of their well being and their mind state at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Very big issue, definitely. And how did you like get into like exploring this topic? I'm very interested in that. Like what exactly, because it's not a very common topic. Most people don't think about it that way. Whether a treatment, the secondary effects of how a treatment makes a patient feel can impact their health. That's very interesting.
So honestly, it was from personal experience. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in my late 20s. And really, what I found that helped make me healthy was okay, treatments. And I'm very grateful for the innovations in the biotech space. They've been a big part of my journey as well. But the realization of my mindset and how I feel emotionally, spiritually, mentally really also plays into my health. So I think it's a lot of self exploration of, okay, the drug can take me so far, but if I don't feel great or I'm super depressed, it's only going to have so much of an effect. So I think a lot of self exploration and then diving in, there is a huge amount of work now that is happening into the integrative and complementary health space. And I think this is somewhere where even the world of psychedelics has really opened it up of a treatment has huge value, but what if we pair it with therapy? What if, and I think that's a big part of it is it's one thing to give here, but again, building that relationship, having those conversations, making lifestyle changes can also be a very fundamental to somebody's health. So again, I think a pharmaceutical, these are all tools. So a pharmaceutical can be a powerful tool that maybe allows you to sleep better, decreases your pain. It's now giving you the space and capacity to now explore in your life what is causing me stress. Maybe you need to reconnect with your body. So it's again allowing you to explore other facets that I think we sometimes forget and in Western medicine are very narrow-minded and just again is, oh, this person said give them a pill or they need to get this test and all that. And a lot of times it's maybe just stepping back and going, hey, how does your body feel? Like sitting yourself, like, are you holding tension? Are you sleeping? Again, are you in a space that you feel safe? And so I think more and more there's so many fundamental, I guess, basic human needs that we can address and explore that aren't very expensive before we jump into, okay, this drug is the root.
Right, yeah, definitely. I mean, mindset is very important when you're having medicine, especially like I know like sometimes placebo effect, right? Like placebo effect
Yeah.
of the mindset. There's no therapeutic value to the drug. It's all your mind playing a very good trick on you where it's healing you out actually because you're feeling safe and feeling comfortable with the treatment, which is very interesting to me. So yeah, thank you so much for that insight.
You're welcome.
So moving on, what is a specific thing you love about your role currently?
So I love that I get to be curious and I get to learn. So I think a lot of, again, people come to me or we sit down and we look at, okay, how can we create solutions or services or or improve what we do now and do research that makes it easier to be healthy or helps us better understand why we're seeing issues or complications in certain populations. And I think the other side is I also get to now I'm in a place where I get to teach and facilitate and create space for people to make better decisions about their health and life. So I think, like I said earlier, that I really struggled in a lot of the spaces I was working in. That again, people are like, "We're going to make the world a healthier place," and then you're in this toxic environment, and you're like, I don't think this is correlating, or like is going to work out the way you want." So now being in a place where I get to help professionals, people build companies from the ground up that are taking a more healthy, abundant mind frame is awesome. Like I love the fact that I get the privilege to do that. And again, I get to sit and work with people who are so brilliant, who have so many ideas and are so excited about their work. And I just get to help them level up and enhance or expand how they get to share that or create for the world.
Yeah, that's definitely very great. And on the other side of that question, what is something you dislike about your role?
So I'm finding more and more we're in a state where it's very much the what have you done for me lately? What have you posted lately? And especially in the health space, like if you're working on like a new pharmaceutical, that could be 7 to 10 years to market. I think a lot of my work, like I have publications from early on in my career, case studies and white papers, but a lot of what I have created will never see the light of day. So it's now trying to reframe, and I've been very, very fortunate. I have an incredible network and incredible opportunities, but more and more I'm realizing like you have to hype yourself and be generating more regular content online. So that has been an interesting transition. It's I think it's a dislike right now, but I think for me I look at it as a challenge of it is forcing me to advocate and really show my value and my worth to the world. And again, I have to believe it. I have to really lean into it to get other people to. So I take it as a challenge. Um, I think that with that as well is like you even said in university, like everyone's hustling, it's competitive. So it's also, I think, too, is finding opportunities and people that yes, that competition and that wanting to do amazing is there, but it's not cutthroat. Like I think very much again going to that abundance mind frame, there is opportunity for everyone. We can all be successful here and do incredible things. It's finding those people who think that way as well, because I think a lot of times you create a relationship, but then it's toxic or it's not the right fit, and I think it's not getting frustrated or stuck when you go down one of those paths. You're like, this looks like amazing opportunity, or you look at and I've looked at companies and gone, oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity here, and then I'll jump in and go, this is not what I thought, or this is not aligned with my values. So being able to really, I guess, quickly shake that off, or even on the flip side of you get really excited about something, you present an idea, and they look at your idea and go, this is not at all what we need. And again, is allowing yourself to brush that off and go, okay, misalignment, not the thing to do with my value. Let's keep moving. I think the other thing that I'm disliking about healthcare right now, and I found this a lot in LA, people talk a really good game. So the marketing, the pitch is on point, but then when you dive in or start poking at statements, there isn't the more fundamental research that's been done. So I think everyone's trying to go to market so quickly, create revenue, especially in the VC model, the venture capital model, is like you need to show returns very quickly. So what people are claiming, what people are bringing up, it's disheartening for me. Of again, I think there's some incredible things on the market, but as a consumer, like how do you navigate through the garbage or the things that again are a great vision but aren't actually tangible real things? So I think that's been, again, I'm educated, I work in this space, I find a challenge to navigate through. So for the general consumer, I can only imagine what it is to be like, oh, this looks incredible, maybe I want to spend my money on it, but there isn't a really good way for them to quantify, is there actually value for me?
Hmm, I see. Yeah, that's definitely very insightful. Moving on to our next question. What is an interesting networking story that taught you a lot?
So it was actually how I transitioned from being a researcher to working on the business strategy side. So I had been in Boston. I was invited to a dinner by a friend of mine. And the woman cooking the dinner was a theoretical physicist who had founded an incredible AI machine learning company. We had an amazing evening. It went great, didn't think anything of it. She then reached out to me a few months later. And so, and was first approached me as a researcher. I just moved to LA, so it wasn't the right fit. But then I reached out again a few months after that and was like, hey, actually, would you be interested in joining our business development team?
Mhm.
So I think for me, and so again, I went into that dinner as I'm seeing friends, I'm connecting with people there, not thinking anything would come of it. So I think with it, anytime you do have an opportunity to go to an event, this is where I think, again, just that practice of introducing yourself, being curious, asking questions. Again, you don't have to know everything about everyone, but just showing up as your authentic self and asking questions that you're truly curious about can lead to incredible things. And just have an openness of like not an expectation that, oh, or set on like what the outcome of that engagement or that interaction is. But again, the openness of just somebody you randomly meet, may it be on a plane, may it be at a networking event, who knows? Just building a fundamental, authentic relationship. There's no telling where that can go. So just having an openness to that and not having expectations, but also anything is possible.
Definitely, yeah, like I feel like a lot of the times I've heard with networking is like it's never like a like no one likes a very transactional relationship. It should be very organic, very natural, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like this puts it into perspective really well. So
Yeah.
moving on to the next question, what is your favorite source of healthcare industry related information?
So, out of all my like favorites, if you want a quirky kind of different look of the industry, I absolutely love the NPR newsletter Goats and Soda.
Okay.
It's a different one. It gives stories from around the world of different perspectives that are not just even are just like the medical what's happening, but also the sociology sort of anthropology side and
Mhm.
cultural side of healthcare. So I think that's a really cool one. For more general, I'm a huge fan of Stat News, Axios Vitals, and then Fierce Pharma Healthcare Biotech are great resources. A lot of them have free daily or weekly newsletters. From a public health perspective, I love Harvard Public Health Magazine. And then as well, I think NPR Health, from just a general consumer standpoint, gives a really good snapshot picture of key issues that we see in, I would say, the US demographic and market.
Yeah, definitely very well balanced. Yeah, a lot of sources, a lot of great sources. I'll definitely check out some of these afterwards. And for our final question of the episode, what is a wise quote that has stuck with you over the years?
So the quote comes from Alon Kundera's book, Unbearable Lightness of Being, which is a fantastic read if you haven't. But it's human life occurs only once. And the reason we cannot determine which of our decisions are good and which bad is that in any given situation, we can only make one decision. We are not granted a second, third, fourth life in which to compare various decisions. So for me, what again is we can only make the best decision we can at the time. And we have to again forgive our previous selves, or we can always look back and have regret, or oh, I could have done this differently. But I think more and more is when we have decisions, when we're pressured to go one way or another, is just to step back and really ground ourselves and go, what is the best choice for now? Knowing that nothing is permanent and that we can always move and deviate and pivot.
Mhm.
And that again, we do the best we can with what we have and we continue to show up.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very powerful quote, like shows the value of life and the value of decision and not like overthinking
Yeah.
it. It also reminds me
Yeah.
of like one book that I read called The Power of Now. It's like living
Yes.
in the present,
Mm.
don't time
Yeah.
travel in the future or the past and think about things because those don't exist. honestly.
And I think too, especially like for students, like again, you're so consumed of like what comes next, what comes next. And
Right,
all you have is now. Like
right.
that's the only thing of again, I can't change the past. So with peace, finding that compassion for previous versions of myself. And then again, I can't predict what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Hmm.
All I can do is trust and again, show up, do my best, make the best decision I can based on the information I have,
Mhm.
and trust whatever manifests is supposed to, and I'll have the skills to navigate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, Breland, this has been an enlightening conversation. Thank you for sharing your expertise and giving us a glimpse into your work in strategic advising and also the pitfalls like data fragmentation, etc., in the biotech industry, consulting, pharmaceuticals. That's going to be the future. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone interested in health innovation and strategy. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Brelan, thank you so much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been a treat to be able to spend some time with both of you. So thank you.
Mhm.